I'm Austin Frugal,
I'm Jacob Mullen.
I'm John Dongo.
I'm Aaron McGlade.
I'm Jack Volrath.
and we picked the reading is Travel Immoral? And after reading it, we all kind of picked different opinions. I'm on that it is immoral.
I'm
Me as
also
well.
saying it is immoral.
Me as well as immoral.
And I say moral.
Me and Aaron are the moral side of the conversation.
And the first point that I have that it is immoral is that with frequent travel comes rising costs for locals. And like an example is like housing and food prices often in tourist heavy areas are higher because they gotta charge the tourists more money to make more money, but that also is the same price the locals have to pay when they are just living their regular lives.
That is true, but I think this guy's forgetting that 10% of the GDP is all through tourism. Also, tourism supports entrepreneurship, local run businesses, local artists to show the culture and just get jobs, create money. And I feel like tourism affects the economy positively.
I'd agree with you, John, and I'd even back it up with saying that 1 in every 10 jobs is in tourism worldwide, and it's valued at $1.7 trillion.
But let me also tell you, hotel and resorts, those create an immense amount of jobs for a lot of people in these countries.
Okay,
Yeah, that's true, but countries could become over-dependent on tourism and could rely too heavily on tourism, which then becomes unstable for the government. And like if travel slows down, like COVID-19 for example, businesses and workers lose their income, and that just shows like poor economic planning on. But that's only if it does become an overdependence. Like if it's just something on the side, then it can like work well with the country. But countries like Hawaii or Cuba, where their more income is overdependence on tourism, then it can like slow down.
to go along with your like the hotels and stuff, a big thing with especially places like South Africa or like Hawaii or any like tropical areas like that is every time they do build a new hotel or like they pave roads, it's habitat loss for animals. So like the more like they build and grow their traveling agency, the more that they're actually harming the ecosystem and like the animals and the environment and everything like that.
That is true. The environment does get a great loss, but we're forgetting that the jobs that people are building that creates jobs and stuff. So, like economically it helps, but like eco-friendly wise, I suppose there's some negatives. But a lot of the money that's put into creating these hotels and stuff, they're put back to national parks to have like a great showing to like the tourists all around town. So.
And I just have to add to that. That's like also going into redistribution of wealth. So it's like when like richer countries are like visiting all these other poor countries, they depend on the foreign currency that comes in.
Foreign currency in Cuba.
Because they don't have exactly in Cuba they don't have many natural resources to export, so they can't make much money off that. So they have to turn to other things for them to be able to make money. Such as having all the resorts and all the tourist attractions.
And also, may I add, traveling is it's great for your health. You know, it promotes relaxation. You know, it leads like the daily habits. Like it like encourages like walking, swimming, hiking, doing all the outdoor stuff. And tourism really shows the light to that. I feel like it's a loss. It's lost in like your hometown.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Yeah.
To kind of tie back into what you said, like the environment's losing, but people are gaining money. In today's world, businesses are expected to do more than just make money. They're also judged on their social and environmental impact, and that ties back to the corporate social responsibility. Like tourism companies or any company has a duty. They have to ensure that their business is activating like communities, protects the environment, safe worker environmental stuff as well.
Good point.
Another problem that like kind of comes with, you talked about national parks a little bit. Sometimes like they do get a lot of money through tourism, but sometimes money can't fix what human destruction causes. So like for example, if someone were to dump something into water, you can't really instantly fix water. It takes years to fix. Or for example, if someone were to start a forest fire and burn down 300-year-old trees through the forest, you can't put any money in to grow those trees back instantly. So like, I get what you're saying, but it does economically help, but sometimes money isn't the only thing that drives like and thrives with parks. Like sometimes just leaving it alone and like having minimalism in it is actually what thrives.
That's true, but I do feel like tourism, it just helps to, first of all, it helps to show like historical facts, like things that happened in the past so people can learn from it. Also helps expand on like geography, problem solving skills, also language. Like most of the time if you like tour a different country, you don't know the language, so it helps with problem solving skills. And as I said before, like the history, like if we see like all these old monuments, like we'll have like a photograph in our head, like, oh wow, this really happened, like why it's bad, either good or bad, why we need to learn from it or not learn from it, or like take whatever we need to take in. So I feel like history and like geography wise, like tourism is like super important for those two reasons.
That is a good point. I think it depends. It almost depends where you're traveling to.
Yeah.
So like anywhere, like personally, and like thinking, anywhere's down south would probably get more impacted through travel because the plane rides are typically longer, so it's more greenhouse emission going out. Smaller things can impact. Smaller actions can have huge impacts on like ecosystems.
Yeah.
However, like places like the States, the only really downfall to tourists like Disneyland and all that, the only downfall I can really think of is overcrowding.
Yeah.
Like people who live there and who do a daily commute every day have to deal with all the traffic from tourism, but it doesn't really impact the States in a negative way other than economic growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It definitely, like, if you're living in Maine and visiting, like, New York, like, that's not a huge deal. But if you're all the way from Alaska traveling to a place that's primarily made for tourism, and you're going, like, to Hawaii, like, you're taking a plane, so that's carbon emissions or whatever, right? So, yeah, I agree with that. I think it matters a lot on where you're visiting and where you're from.
Yeah, that's true, but also I have a stat here saying that in 2023, the greenhouse gas emissions in China were 35% of the world's total, while tourism only made up 8% of that. So, like, I guess if you're gonna say that tourism is so bad that we have to look at other problems as well, with the pollution and carbon
And
pollution.
also, I think we're forgetting that like tourism like helps countries build relationships as well. Like it promotes like the big idea of peace. Like we're in a different time than like the World War II days, World War I days. Like we're in an era of peace. So you know, like if like a certain country allows like a large number of tourisms, like it enhances their economy and like it builds a relationship that you know they can invest in trade or whatever else that the country needs to invest in. So yeah.
To contradict and like almost contrast exactly what you're saying, I know a lot more recently, if people from North America travel to Russia and they break a law, then they're in jail in Russia, and it actually makes a conflict in between two countries, because you'll have like, for example, Canada threatening Russia to let our prisoners out, but then you have Russian prisoners in Canada that they're threatening. So it almost causes like more conflict in that sense when you're traveling, because you have to follow different rules, and if you don't know the rules, sometimes there's more consequences to those actions, and it could actually cause like not wars but small conflicts.
Yeah, but that's just dependent on the person and if they can follow a rule or not. It's not dependent on like tourism in general. It's like not the country's fault somebody broke a rule or broke a law, you know. But I see what you mean. I can understand it.
Helps the people adapt, like the tourism, like helps them adapt to different situations. They're in a different country. Could have to wear not wear a sweater one day, or like you have to wear a sweater because it's so cold one day. So like also helps with adaptability in all forms of life, I'd say.
I'd also say it like shows like the other people in the world, like other cultures, and like how like they like live their lives and how they whichever like gods they believe in and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like it's also like educational a bit.
I do agree. I also, you know how we said it matters like where you're traveling to and where you're traveling from? I think it also depends like what company you're supporting. because there's places like Marineland that like they actually got shut down because of how poorly run they are. Like they trap animals and they use animals for the entertainment of the tourists. So like they're exploiting natural resources, which is how business works. But to an extent, like they're doing it unhumane.
Yeah, they're doing greenwashing, where they claim to be eco-friendly, they
Yes.
claim to be like sustainable, but they just do like the bare minimum. Like they give
Small
they give a
enclosure.
beluga whale like a barely any enough swimming room.
Yeah.
And
Obviously,
not
like
healthy
that's
enclosure.
yeah, that's a super sad thing to hear. But at the end of the day, that does create jobs for the
Right.
people working in marine life. Obviously, like I never want that to happen to any sort of animal in the world. No animal deserves to go through that. But at the end of the day, it does create jobs. It does boost the economy. It does, we'll go into everything. So I know what you mean. Like I hope it's done now. Not that it never happens again. But it did help the economy. It is a business.
I think this talk in general is like a great example of like pros and cons of everything.
Yeah, for sure.
Like things that we have to work on as a society,
As a global society.
as a global society. Like the morals for everything, like marine land trapping animals.
Yeah.
But then you can also see that as a plus, like zoos and everything actually give animals a safe home. Because
Yeah.
like in their actual home, they could be endangered. So I think it just shows us how we have to work on like greenhouse emissions.
Yeah.
We gotta like find more humane ways. We gotta be more respectful. So I think it's just all really a learning experience through travel, on like a actual learning basis through like knowledge and also just through mistakes.
Yeah, I agree.